and you're going to get honest feedback. She's the greatest female player that ever lived. Then the lady said to me, I don't remember which one, but she's...
There's a moment in every great sports story where the timeline just stops making sense, where the numbers and the results and the trajectory all point one direction, and then something shifts and suddenly you're left staring at a blank space where a name used to be. And that's exactly where we are right now with Alex, because 6 weeks ago she was ranked 29th in the world, 20 years old, from the Philippines, sitting inside the top 30 of the WTA Tour. And then without a word, without a statement, without even a polite social media post, she pulled out of Madrid, and the silence that followed was the kind that doesn't just make you curious, it makes you uneasy. And to really understand why this moment feels so heavy, you have to go back and understand who Alex actually is beyond the ranking and the scorelines, because she was never just a tennis player in the ordinary sense of that phrase. From the moment she started collecting junior Grand Slams and turning heads on the developmental circuit, she carried something onto every court that most players don't have to think about. She carried the weight of a nation that had never really had someone like her. The Philippines doesn't have a deep tennis tradition. There's no iconic history of champions, no legendary names that the next generation grew up trying to imitate. What they had was Alex. And that changes the entire emotional architecture of her career. Because every match she plays and every tournament she enters or skips sends a ripple far beyond her own rankings page. Her fan base isn't loyal in the passive way that most sports fan bases are. They're emotionally invested in a way that's almost closer to something personal. They see themselves in her. Especially the young girls who grew up in a country that was waiting for someone to show them what was possible. So when she vanishes from a draw without explanation, the silence doesn't just create speculation in tennis circles, it lands differently across an entire region of the world. And you cannot fully appreciate how strange this Madrid withdrawal feels without going back to Dubai. Because what happened there was genuinely one of those performances that shifts how the whole circuit thinks about a player. She walked out against a top 10 seed, someone ranked among the best women playing tennis on the planet. And she didn't just win, she controlled the match. She was sharp and composed and tactically precise in a way that made commentators search for the right words. Because this wasn't one of those upsets where the favorite showed up flat and the underdog somehow scrambled through. This was Alex solving a puzzle cleanly. The shot selection was deliberate, the footwork was decisive, and more than anything, the mental composure was the thing that stood out. That intangible quality that separates players who belong from players who are just visiting the top level. And the tennis world noticed, not in a polite way but in the real way, where analysts start recalibrating their projections and opponents start pulling up your recent matches before they face you. And she didn't stop there either, because her very next opponent came in riding 7 consecutive wins without dropping a single set. The kind of hot streak that makes draws feel dangerous, and Alex beat her too. And at that point the conclusion was unavoidable. This wasn't a lucky stretch of form, this was a player who had genuinely figured something out. Yes, she eventually ran into Coco Gauff. And yes, the scoreline looked rough on paper. 6-2-6 love is the kind of result that gets screenshot and shared as evidence of something. But Gauff is the 3rd best player in the world and has been playing some of the most dominant tennis on the tour for the past 2 years. Losing to her is not a verdict on your career, it's a lesson. And by all accounts Alex walked away from that match with more information about her own game than she could have collected any other way. The direction was still clearly upward. The confidence was still building. And then came Miami. And Miami is where the story starts to get complicated in a way that goes beyond just results. Because the year before, Alex had one of those breakthrough tournament runs that rewires how the tour thinks about you, beating top players back-to-back and reaching the semi-finals on one of the biggest stages in women's tennis. Which is exactly the kind of result that elevates your name and your ranking in a real way. But it also creates this invisible pressure that follows you around for 12 months, because when you have a massive result, you spend the entire next year defending those points. You're not playing to gain ground anymore. You're playing to hold the position you already earned. And when Alex couldn't replicate that semi-final run in 2026, the ranking consequences came fast and they stung. She went from feeling like she was building momentum to suddenly having to process a significant drop she hadn't anticipated at that scale. And the psychological weight of that is genuinely difficult to describe unless you've been in a competitive environment where your standing is public and tracked and discussed by people who have opinions about what it means. It's not just about the numbers changing. It's about the internal story you've been telling yourself about where you're headed and suddenly having to rewrite that story while everyone is watching. She carried all of that directly into the clay season. Stuttgart was her first real test on the red dirt, and it didn't go the way she needed. Leylah Fernandez controlled the match from the opening game. The whole thing was quick and one-sided, and the kind of loss that doesn't just hurt in the immediate aftermath. It asks harder questions because clay is genuinely a different animal for players who are built for hard courts. The longer rallies demand a different kind of physical and mental endurance. The footwork requirements become more precise and more punishing. A player who looks fluid and powerful on hard surfaces can suddenly look slightly hesitant on clay. And that slight difference gets stretched and amplified over the course of a full match. Alex's game, the flat ground strokes, the pace she generates from the baseline, the way she can dictate when she's in rhythm, all of that translates beautifully on hard courts. Clay asks her to construct points differently, to be patient in a way that doesn't come as naturally, to trust a process that doesn't always give you the immediate gratification her hard court game does. And Stuttgart was a reminder that the learning curve on clay is still very much active, which is exactly what makes what happened next so difficult to reconcile. Because the expected response, the healthy developmental response, the response you'd see from someone who was managing this the right way, was to take the Stuttgart loss as information, make adjustments, and show up in Madrid with something to prove. That's how this chapter was supposed to go. And instead her name quietly disappeared from the draw. No injury update, no thank you to the tournament post, no carefully worded statement from her team. Nothing at all. And in a professional sport, where communication has become almost reflexively polished, where even routine withdrawals come with a prepared line or two, that level of complete silence is its own kind of message. It forces everyone paying attention to start filling in the gaps themselves. And there are really only a few explanations that hold up logically. The first and most straightforward is physical. The stretch Alex has been through is not light work by any standard. Dubai to Indian Wells to Miami to Stuttgart is back-to-back high-intensity competition with travel layered on top of it. And clay on top of accumulated physical stress is the most punishing surface in the sport. Longer points mean more lateral movement, more sliding, more load on the knees and hips and ankles. Something that's manageable at 80 cent on a hard court can become genuinely risky on clay. If Alex was carrying even a minor physical issue that she'd been managing quietly through the hard court season, the responsible decision might have been to protect herself ahead of Roland Garros, rather than risk turning something small into something that takes months to recover from. That scenario makes complete sense, and it would also explain the silence, because sometimes injuries involve a level of privacy that players choose to maintain, especially when the full picture isn't clear yet and there's no certain timeline to communicate. The second possibility is less clinical but just as real, and it's the one that sports media tends to shy away from because it feels harder to quantify: the mental and emotional weight of everything that's been piling up. Alex is 20 years old. She's managing the pressure of being a national icon for an entire country. She's processing a significant ranking drop after Miami. She's adapting to a new surface under public scrutiny. She's doing all of it while the whole thing plays out on a stage that doesn't dim between events. The WTA Tour doesn't slow down because you need a moment. It doesn't offer you a quiet week to recalibrate. It just keeps moving forward, and you either keep pace or you fall behind. And sometimes the genuinely wise call is to step back, not because something is broken but because you recognize that showing up at 60 cents serves nobody, least of all yourself. And if that's what happened with Madrid, that's not a red flag. That's actually a sign of self-awareness that a lot of young athletes don't have. But here's what makes the silence so genuinely hard to sit with regardless of which explanation is true. The people who care about Alex most, the fans waking up early in Manila to watch her play, the young girls who look at her career and see a door that was previously closed now standing open, the tennis community that has invested real emotional energy into watching her develop. They deserve something. Not a medical report, not a press conference, just a line. Just a word that says she's okay, or that she's taking care of something, or even just that there's more to come. Because right now the vacuum is being filled by speculation, and speculation is almost never generous. And Alex has a relationship with her audience that runs deeper than the typical athlete-fan dynamic. She knows this, and that's part of what makes the silence feel so out of character. What we can say with some confidence is what the stakes look like from here. The clay swing is the most consequential stretch of the European season. Stuttgart and Madrid and Rome, and then Roland Garros. And for a player at Alex's ranking, these aren't optional stops. They are the load-bearing structure of the whole year. Rankings are built here. Grand Slam seedings are determined here. The difference between being seeded at Roland Garros and not being seeded is the difference between a legitimate run at the title and an early exit against someone you had no business facing in the first 2 rounds. Alex, at her current ranking, is close enough to break into the top 32 with a strong run through Rome and potentially an early Roland Garros result. But that window doesn't stay open forever. Every tournament missed is points not accumulated. And ground that has to be recovered later instead of built on now. If Rome goes the same way as Madrid, the conversation changes significantly. It stops being about a bump in the road and starts being about a real detour. And the question of whether 2026 becomes a development year or a setback year becomes a lot harder to answer confidently. But here's the thing that matters most, and the thing that gets lost when we focus too much on the rankings math. None of what I just described is inevitable. The players who are considered the best in the world right now have all had versions of this exact moment. Sabalenka had stretches early in her career where the talent was obvious, but the results were inconsistent and the pressure felt crushing. Gauff went through a visible period where the weight of expectation affected her game before she found her footing and became who she is now. Swiatek had to learn how to handle the mental demands of being the tournament favorite before she could consistently play like one. The path upward is never straight. It is always full of pauses and detours and chapters where the story slows down before it picks back up. What matters is never that the pause happened. What matters is what comes next. And if you've actually watched Alex play, if you've seen how she competes in a tight moment, the way she carries herself on a big court, the way her tennis looks when everything clicks and she's playing that free, aggressive, fearless game she showed in Dubai, you understand that the ingredients are all there. The talent is not in question, the work ethic is not in question, the competitive instinct has never been in question. What's still being written is how she handles adversity at this level. How she responds when the plan falls apart. How she bounces back when the momentum breaks. And right now we are right in the middle of that chapter. Rome is next. And if she walks into that draw and competes, adjusting and fighting and showing up, then Madrid becomes background noise, a sentence in a longer story that ends somewhere genuinely impressive. But if the silence stretches further and the absences keep stacking, the questions will get louder and the window will get smaller and the story becomes harder to tell optimistically. So wherever Alex is right now, whatever is happening behind the scenes that we can't see, here's hoping she gets the time and the space and the support she needs to come back and play the kind of tennis that made Dubai feel like a preview of something much bigger, because when she's right and everything is clicking, she is something genuinely special to watch. And the sport is better with her fully in it. And that's the story that everyone who has been paying attention is still hoping gets to be told.